Hey guys, welcome to Midwest Fantasy Football Week 5. It is Thursday, so you're going to see this video probably as Thursday Night Football is going on. Sorry for the delay on that. I'm going to shoot for getting these out Tuesdays next week, so we won't have waiver wires. We're going to have educated guesses on waiver wires. In Week 5's biggest blowout and top scoring game, where in the same game where Chris's brown-eyed monster knocked off Drew's undercooked burger 154.6 to 97.4. This is 2 weeks in a row that Chris has pulled down the top score. We're going to hope that this doesn't become a trend. For Chris, 5 guys on the team scored between 31 and 20 points, led by Tom Brady's 30.5 points against Indianapolis. A slow week for Alvin Kamara, only put up 5.5 points on Monday Night Football as Mark Ingram, his return, zapped into a lot of Kamara's potential points. For Drew, he got 21.6 points from Big Ben, 18.7 points from James White, and 17.8 points from Christian McCaffrey. Amari Cooper continues to be hot and cold. You never know what you're going to get with him. Last week, he put up 26 points. This week, it was a mere 1.5 points. So far this season, the pattern seems to be on, off, on, off, on, off. So you should be good, theoretically, starting him this week until his bye week next week when the pattern resets. You got to be careful with him, though. This could be the result. In this week's closest matchup, Nick's Douches of T. Bjork took down Pope 1.0's Pump Squad 105.38 to 91.38, a 14-point margin. Nick's boys were led this week by Captain Andrew Luck's 25.6 points and 20.86 points from Tyler Lockett. Nick, I'm sure this performance from the captain gives you as much hope as it does to give Andrew.
Dearest mother, I write you a renewed man. I stood upon the battlefield once more, and the feeling was glorious. I used my sidearm multiple times with great success. I am filled with hope. Battle calls me, mother. I shall answer. Andrew.
For Pope 1.0, he got 17.1 points from Kirk Cousins and 16.6 points from Stephon Diggs. Nick won this matchup by beating or tying Pope 1.0 in most categories. Pope 1.0 only had the higher performer at the defensive position and at running back. Nick gets the win here and jumps up to 8th place at 3-2. Despite having a nearly identical point scored total as Pope 1.0 at 535.5 to 535.42. With the loss, Pope 1.0 drops to 1-4, as his strength of schedule against so far has been brutal, having had his opponents put up 670 points so far, which would slot in as the third highest score if it was all a single team.
Well, that sucks.
In other games this week, my team, Justin Tucker Must Die, knocked off Pope 2.0's Drunk Choir Boys 144.5 to 126.8. I personally dubbed this game the Bell Bowl, as it featured one team that's hoping Le'Veon Bell would hurry up and end his holdout, and one hoping that he's just going to get traded. For me, this season has been all about the running backs. This week, the trend continues, getting 35.5 points from James Conner, Bell's heir apparent, 22.2 points from TJ Yeldon, and 20 points from Melvin Gordon III. For Pope 2.0, the 32 points that he got from Odell Beckham Jr. led his team, because of course he did. Because that's what it always seems like it happens whenever you play me. Every time. And actually, I went back and looked at the numbers. Here they are. This is really what I go against. You have had one bad game in the 6 games that I've had against you since Odell Beckham Jr. was traded by me to you in 2014. My only saving grace is that I didn't trade you Connor at the beginning of the season because I think he's going to be good. So I don't feel too bad for you about this whole Bell-Connor situation. Mostly because I'm just glad that, at least at this point, it's not going to turn into another Beckham situation.
I guess there is no such thing as a jinx.
Derek's Gurley's Gone Wild defeated Jason's The Hammock District 125.76 to 109.76. Todd Gurley showed up strong for this one as he led Derek's team with 31.3 points. Demaryius Thomas added 19 points, and Matthew Stafford chipped in 15 as well. For Jason, he got great games from Saquon Barkley with 27 points and 20 points from DeAndre Hopkins. This was another fairly even matchup, but Derek pulled ahead with his starting running backs, putting up about 10 points more than Jay's and getting another 12-point boost from his kickers and his defenses in the matchup. With the win, Derek grabs a 6-pack of beer off of Jason as the two decided to put a little side wager on this matchup. Hopefully Jason gets the beer from Derek in a little bit more efficiently manner than the way these guys exchange beer.
Hey, pass me a beer.
That is an old Milwaukee ad, in case you're wondering why the hell they're throwing old Milwaukees back and forth. I wish I had noticed this before last week's video, as I certainly would have pointed it out. I know I mentioned last week that we'd never had two 0-4 teams, but I didn't even notice that they were playing each other in Week 5. Lee's I Want Some Butts defeats Brandon's once-in-a-generation 113-65, getting Lee his first win of the season. For Lee, the Green Bay duo of Aaron Rodgers 31.7 points and Devontae Adams 27.5 points might have led Lee to a victory here, but they couldn't do the same thing for Green Bay's actual team. With the win, Lee, you jump to 11th place. It's a tie for 10th place with Pope 1.0, but you're still 11th by points. Stop me if you've heard this before. Patrick Mahomes leading Brandon's squad this week with 18.8 points. The real question is, though, has the league figured out Mahomes? This is the worst game of the season for him so far. Despite still throwing for 313 yards and running for a touchdown, he had no passing touchdowns this week. Of course, that may just be a byproduct of having to play Jacksonville. Besides Mahomes, you got 12.5 points from Nyheim Hines and 14 points from Carolina's defense. Unfortunately, that meant the other 5 starters that you ran out this week combined for less than 20 points. Brandon Cooks is 0, Doug Baldwin's 0.6, and opting to start no kicker meant you were hurting big time. But hey, starting no kicker means you still get 0 points, right? It could be worse. For Brandon, you're currently sitting at 0-5, and the road ahead looks very rough. I don't know if you've looked at your schedule at all, but the next 6 opponents that you face are the current top 6 scorers in the league, meaning that for the next 6 weeks you have the hardest possible strength of schedule.
God damn it! Come on! Come on! Shit! Come on, Glenn! Come on! Get your head in the goddamn game!
Good luck, buddy. Finally, the last matchup of the day. Josh's I Win Because Y'all Drafted beat Alex's Funkle Up 115-93. I think we should probably talk about the kickers before we talk about anything else. -1 to -1. What a performance. Josh's Robbie Gold managed to miss just 1 field goal on the day, but his -1 point was miles ahead of Alex's $19 kicker Mason Crosby, who racked up a -1 point on the day by missing 4 field goals and a PAT. His only redemption was that he nailed a 40-plus yard field goal at the end of the game to jump from a -5 spot back up to that -1. In case you're wondering, that would have been the league's all-time worst kicking performance, as the previous performance is currently held by Josh in Week 7 from last year, where he scored -3 points from his kicker. In terms of the good stuff from this matchup, Josh got 30 points from Drew Brees and 10-plus from everybody else except for his kicker and Jay Ajayi. Jay Ajayi, whose injury cost him most of last week's game and, in fact, the rest of the season as he tore an ACL or an MCL or something like that. Fortunately for you, you still have Isaiah Crowell sitting on your bench, who you can plug in going forward. Unfortunately, you didn't have him in this week and couldn't take advantage of his 32.6 point day. For Alex, you got 22 points from Zach Ertz, 18 points from Cooper Kupp, and 16 points from Kareem Hunt this week. As previously mentioned, there were some new bets this week. Jason owes a 6-pack of beer to Derek now for their head-to-head matchup this week, and I lost to Nick in our Superman League, which means I owe him Buffalo Wild Wings. Waiver wire. Holy cow, the waiver wire. You can tell that Brandon is frustrated with his team situation right now, and specifically his running back situation, despite having Nyheim Hines, which is a decent option at this point. Brandon blew $50 of his $100 fab this weekend alone on 2 running backs, bidding $25 for Corey Clement, getting him over Lee's $3 bid, and $25 for Mike Davis over Chris's $3 bid. Also coming out of the Philly backfield in the Jay Ajayi void, Wendell Smallwood went to Scotty B for $7 over Chris's $4 bid. Deshaun Jackson finally got rostered this weekend. In terms of average, with his bye factored in last week, so that's why we had to look at average, he's the 4th highest scoring wide receiver in the league right now. And he's been sitting on the waiver wire. Finally going to Derek for $7 over Alex's $3 bid. I'd have picked him up myself a couple weeks ago, but I already have Mike Evans, and I don't want to have two wide receivers on the same team. Especially now that Fitzmagic isn't throwing him the ball anymore. And finally, Nick's Stat Corner. For Week 5 stats, Nick's couple things he noted here was that Chris is the first one to reach 50 wins in the regular season all time. Chris is also tied for third place now for weekly high scores at 7. Tied with Scott B for third, currently trailing myself, Nick, and then technically Andy as well. Nick continues to dominate Scott B, moving to 9-2 regular season record all time. Chris continues to crush Drew, moving to 5-1 all time. Derek gets a rare win over J Money, moving to 3-6 all time. And Chris is one weekly high score away at this point from people who have made money in the league, which is only Eric and Nick at this point. So Nick likes to talk about that, so you may get to join that elusive club. That's the end of this week's video. We'll see you after Week 6.